And as you could see in those pictures there of fresh stone pelting, the situation continues to be very tense in Shivamogga. These are images from just a few hours ago, right after the 23-year-old Bajrang Dal activist funeral procession passed through the city. Harsha was hacked to death just days after he attended an anti-hijab protest. While the Karnataka government has denied any link to the hijab war, several top BJP leaders, including the man you just heard, K.S. Ishwarappa, Minister, says that he's demanding an NIA probe, and this has happened very much in the hijab war's wake. Harsha, a casualty of the hijab face-off, is his death the first blood in a larger communal agenda before the Karnataka elections next year. With only 14 months to go for the Karnataka election, the communal tension in the state has escalated again. Rocked this time by the death of a Bajrang Dal activist in Shivamogga. 23-year-old Harsha stabbed to death on Sunday night, sparking a fierce whodunit in Karnataka. A state in the wake of the continuing and fiery hijab showdown. The brutal murder of Harsha has triggered a war of words between the BJP and the Congress and a law and order situation on the ground. The government claims that as of now, there is no link between the hijab protesters and the murder of Harsha.
From yesterday night, the whole thing has been, investigation has been started. There are some clues and the investigation is going on. I have got information that they got some leads. Probably they will take up to the logical conclusion very shortly.
23 ವರ್ಷದ ಯುವಕ ನಡೆದು ಬರುವಂತಹ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆನ್ನಟ್ಟಿ ಅವನು ಓಡಿಸಾಡಿ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅನೇಕ ಇಂಜುರಿಗಳು ಅವನ ಮೈ ಮೇಲೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. ತುಂಬಾ ದುರದೃಷ್ಟಕರವಾಗಿರತಕ್ಕಂತ ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಇದು. ನಾನು ಅದನ್ನ ಕಂಡೆಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
But BJP leaders have drawn a direct link between the hijab showdown and Harsha's death, claiming he was targeted for his anti-hijab stance. Minister K.S. Ishwarappa claims that Muslim goons got emboldened by Congress State President D.K. Shivakumar, a charge that prompted a strong retort.
ನಿನ್ನೆ ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನ್ ಗೂಂಡಾಗಳು ಕೊಲೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಶಿವಮೊಗ್ಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂದೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನರ ಬಾಲ ಬಿಚ್ಚಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಈ ಧ್ವಜದ ವಿಚಾರ ಬಂದಂಥ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರಿ ಶಾಲೆಯ ಮೈದಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಧ್ವಜವನ್ನು ಇಳಿಸಿ ಭಗವದ್ ಧ್ವಜವನ್ನು ಏರಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 50 ಲಕ್ಷ ಶಾಲ್ಗಳನ್ನು, ಕೇಸರಿ ಶಾಲನ್ನು ಸೂರತ್ನಿಂದ ತಂದು ಹಂಚಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಲಾರಿಗಳು ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಪ್ರಚೋದನಕಾರಿ ಹೇಳಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಡಿ.ಕೆ. ಶಿವಕುಮಾರ್ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೋ ಅದು ಈ ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನ್ ಗೂಂಡಾಗಳಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯ ಕುಮ್ಮಕ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ.
I have no way connected to all these activities. We are only fighting for our national flag and the constitution. Apart from that, we are not. Though he spoke some nonsense in the assembly, I have not provoked or I have not spoken on that issue. I don't want it to make it a political issue. Political issues will be settled at the later course. Now it is the pride of our country.
BJP CT Ravi added fuel to the fire with this tweet, saying Muskan was safe but Harsha was killed, referring to the Mandya girl who refused to back down when cornered and heckled by saffron-clad students.
मुझे लगता है एक साजिश है. साजिश करके उनका हत्या किया है. सीरियस इंक्वायरी होना चाहिए और उसके पीछे कौन कौन है सभी को अंदर डालना, सीरियस इंक्वायरी करना. जरूरत है तो एनआईए को केस हैंड ओवर करना. एनआईए को.
The opposition meanwhile has pinned the blame on the government, accusing them of vitiating the atmosphere and mishandling the hijab row.
This is their achievement. Both Congress and BJP, I think, instead of showing pity on them, they can enjoy now. They achieved to destabilize the peace of this state.
The youngster has been murdered by 6 people. Now, I condemn this murder because we believe in non-violence. We believe in non-violence. Congress party is for non-violence. Whoever there as accused persons in this murder case, they must be booked.
Amidst tensions and protests in Shivamogga, politicians in Karnataka are now jumping the gun to draw a link to the hijab row and thereby gain political brownie points from the tragic killing of Harsha. The government and police's constant appeals to stop provoking locals seems to have fallen on deaf ears. With Nolan Pinto in Shivamogga, Karnataka, Bureau Report, India Today. And a big claim has just been made by the BJP MLA from Mangaluru East. The BJP MLA Bharat Shetty claims that Harsha, the Bajrang Dal activist, was threatened by Islamic groups, including a Facebook group called Mangaluru Muslims. For many months, the BJP MLA calls it a clear attempt to trigger a civil war in Karnataka before the elections next year. And Bharat Shetty, who is the BJP MLA making these explosive claims, joins me live this evening on Newstrack. Mr. Shetty, this particular incident, the horrifying murder of Harsha, certainly not the first killing on either side, but that's the one we're talking about right now. Are you saying that this is related to the hijab fight that has been on in Udupi and elsewhere? Because there is some confusion between the government and the BJP at this time.
No, it looks like it is related to the hijab issue because there's a page called as Mangalore Muslims. They have been threatening him since 2015, I think, as far as I remember. Today also they have put that 2015 or 16 ka post and they have told that we have done it this time. Now this issue, he has been threatened for a few other issues also from before. But now in his, he has been very vocal about the hijab issue. So it looks like now it is about the hijab issues.
So you're saying that he was under threat since 2015. Can you tell us a little bit about the nature of these threats? Are these threats only coming to light now?
Yes, that's what I said. In that Mangalore Muslim, there's a page called as Mangalore Muslim on Facebook. Okay. In this page, they were threatening him for a few other reasons since years. But now, then it was, then there was nothing after that. But now he was posting few things about hijab. He was talking about hijab issues, it seems. So it looks like now it is because of the hijab issue.
What is the current situation, sir? You are the BJP MLA from Mangaluru East, not very far from Udupi. The situation is quite tense in Shivamogga at this point of time. What is your assessment of the situation?
Oh, the police is the government is doing everything possible and everything required to control the situation. And it is not spread out of Shivamogga as far as, right now it is not spread out of Shivamogga at all. But last time also, may it be the Mangalore firing issue or with the DJL, KJL issue in Bangalore, the government has been firm on a stand of maintaining peace and order, and whatever is required to maintain peace and order, the government will go ahead with that.
How difficult is it to keep the calm, sir? The emotions are running high at this point of time. Things could spiral out of control quite easily. We understand that large numbers of police personnel have been rushed into Shivamogga at this point of time. You are the MLA of Mangaluru. Things could spread quite easily. How difficult is it to keep the calm?
It's not a very easy. It's not an easy thing, but I think our police are capable of handling the situation. They have handled it before also. I think they'll handle it now.
Is this about elections, Mr. Shetty? Do you think, because there is a theory that all this communal polarization and divisions that are taking place is a script that is playing out before the elections next year in Karnataka?
See that there might be something else going on also. It looks like that. Because when the CA issue came, a similar modus operandi was used by few fundamentalist organizations. And they were trying to push the situation so that it will go into a civil war kind of a situation. And it didn't. The government handled it properly. They could not, do anything about that. And COVID and all those things were there during that time. We can see a similar modus operandi this time also. They are keeping the, ladies, females in the front, and during the hijab issue also, they were trying to get people on the streets and, make a big issue of it.
Bharat Shetty, thank you for speaking to India Today. Explosive claims there from the Mangaluru MLA of the BJP. He says an attempt is being made to trigger civil war. He says the situation is being contained in Shivamogga, but also drops a bombshell, a claim that had been made only by activists before this. Now a BJP MLA saying that Harsha was under threat by Islamic groups from as far back as 2015. Just look at what Shivamogga has looked like over the hours today since the murder of Harsha. There has been arson, there has been stone pelting, there have been bullets fired in the air, there have been protests, there has been a lathi charge and a palpable sense of tension. You've got a lot of security deployment. The Karnataka government has deployed additional security in the city of Shivamogga in light of things possibly spiraling out of control. These are images, ladies and gentlemen, in Shivamogga in the state of Karnataka. A state that has largely been known to be peaceful has now become a communal powder keg 14 months before it goes to elections the next time. Are things running to a script? Is this a staged conspiracy? Is this political parties indulging in hate politics to stir up polarization before the elections, to create communal divides? These are the big questions that we're asking, alongside the questions of who targeted this young Karyakarta and whether it was really about his participation in the hijab protest. The big questions. Was Harsha murdered for protesting against hijab, which is something that he definitely did do? He even posted it on Facebook. If this investigation is still very much on, it hasn't even been 24 hours since Harsha was murdered, how can the Bommai government clearly say that there is no link to hijab? How are they categorically saying that for this time? Has Harsha's murder made communal tensions much worse? That's practically that's an ironical question, because the answer there is pretty clear. They have become much worse. Why are government and BJP divided on the reasons for Harsha's death? Why is there no clarity on such a sensitive issue? Is this also a fixed match? Why, are the protests and murders to polarize before the Karnataka elections, as many observers believe that these things are happening in the middle of a hard-fought election season that's happening right now in Uttar Pradesh? There is Gujarat later this year, and then you've got the Karnataka elections early next year. Is this all playing to a devious communal script, from the hijab protest to the murder of activists before elections and for election season? Joining me live now from Karnataka, Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Tom Vadakan, spokesperson of the BJP. But I'd like to start with Rashmi Samant, who is a former Students' Union leader from Oxford. She is now an activist and is also an intervener in the cases that we are seeing right now before the Karnataka High Court. Rashmi, I want to come to you first, because you've put out a series of tweets claiming that Harsha was a targeted individual, that the groups based in Mangaluru were after his life in the past as well. We at India Today, have no such information, but by going by what you've tweeted, can you tell us a little bit more? Is there any proof of that? You've basically said that there were certain hardline groups in Mangalore that had their eyes on this individual, this youth, from as far back as 2015. Can you corroborate and substantiate that?
Yeah, I can actually. So there's a Facebook page by the name of Mangalore Muslims, which as of, I think, an hour ago was still up and active and visible to everybody. They had put up a fatwa a post amounting to a fatwa back in 2017 with the picture of Harsha, with his details, with everything, and kind of inciting people to go after him. And there was this post back in 2015, and just a few hours ago they put out a post again saying that a Hindu street dog, Harsha, has been killed, and they kind of they're approving of this killing, of this merciless murder. They're also acknowledging the 2015 post that they made in that post. So it's clear as day that this has been premeditated, and this is a premeditated murder, and this sort of extremist sentiments have been festering for a really long time, and this is not something that happened sporadically. So they've had their eyes on this boy for a really long time, and they finally did it now. So I think this is premeditated murder, and this kind of extremism should have no space in our society. The kind of political
I'll come to the
speak that
politics
is
in a
going
moment,
on.
Rashmi, but do you believe, because the Bommai government says that there is no visible link with the hijab protests that have been happening? We do know that, and we have pictures. We'll put those pictures on your screen. As I'm talking, we'll show those pictures of young Harsha at one of those protests on February the 7th, if I'm not mistaken, at the Sahyadri College, which was, on the day when the violent protests actually took place in the state. Let me put out that picture of this young man at those protests. He even posted that on Facebook. With everything that you've seen, Rashmi, before I go to the politicians, do you believe this murder had something to do with Harsha being involved in those protests, or was there something bigger?
From the signs that I see, I think his presence at the protest was the last straw. The extremists part of, society has always had an issue with his Hindu activism. But the fact that he was so actively present at the hijab protest was the last sort of straw. But that being said, I would also want to give the police the space to carry out a formal investigation and come out with the results. But my honest opinion is that it does have something to do with it. There's a clear link, because it's been consistent, and this was the last straw that finally made it happen.
Okay.
That finally, made this happen.
Okay, so you're saying it's the last straw. The government says no link with hijab, but Rashmi Samant says obviously this must have been a last straw, a catalyst of sorts, but this young Bajrang Dal activist was being targeted from earlier. We don't have proof of that. Rashmi Samant has put out some tweets. You can see them as well. We're going to try and ask some questions about that with the groups that she's named as well. But bringing in Aishwarya and Tom Badakan at this point of time. Aishwarya, this has obviously become hugely political all of a sudden. How many times have we seen the murder, of a person from either community become this huge political hot potato? Yesterday it was someone else. Today, in the wake of the already very troubling, very destabilizing hijab protests and communal polarization, we're seeing this ghastly murder of a young citizen of Karnataka, Harsha. And we've already seen the big brickbats flying between the Congress and the ruling BJP. What is your take on what needs to happen next?
Good evening, Shiv. I think everybody would like to play Sherlock and speculate on what has happened and obviously apportion blame. But the fact remains that is not up to us to decide. First and foremost, it is deeply upsetting and strongly condemnable what has happened, that a young boy has lost his life. The reason and the blame can be apportioned later, and I'm sure that there are appropriate authorities to do that. But Shiv, I've been doing your show even since 2018, 17 and 18, and we've seen this playbook come into action again and again. But, the most irresponsible thing that has been done now is to start off with that communal angle and start and vitiate the environment even more in a society that is already deeply fractured. And the bigger problem is the sort of communal dividends that certain people seem to gain and the inconsistency within the BJP itself. Your Home Minister, your Chief Minister, former Chief Minister Mr. Yediyurappa say we're trying to impartially probe it, and then blame will be apportioned one, while you have other people who are an insult to democracy, like Mr. Ishwarappa, who's a shame on humanity to say the least, who is obviously blaming a community one. You have Mr. C.T. Ravi, who obviously doesn't trust his BJP government in the state and is saying NIA. And you have fools like Renukacharya who now want to blame, different communities. The fact of the matter is, whoever is responsible, should be taken to task, and should be brought to justice, one. But second is the fact that you're allowing far more, whether it's 144 or even this sort of protests that are happening now, you're creating more communal strife. And Shiv, you've seen this, I've seen this from Shobha Karandlaje's letter in 2017 and 18 to what we're seeing now. The BJP government is extremely irresponsible with the manner in which it's going along. And it's a law and order issue that should be solved at the earliest.
Okay.
More shameful is them blaming the Congress. Mr. Ishwarappa honestly seems to have a lack of grey matter, where he's blaming Mr. D.K. Shivkumar. He's blaming our PCC president for talking about the tricolor and trying to protect the national symbol and blaming this on that. I feel like all of them have lost the plot, and it's absolutely shameful what is happening, and the BJP is entirely to blame in this situation.
The blame is with the BJP, says the Congress. Tom, would you like to respond to that? Two attacks. One, that all of this is running to a script before the Karnataka elections, and dare I say the elections that are on even at this point of time, because many links have been made between what's happening in Karnataka and the UP elections as well. And also the suggestion that the BJP and the government are totally divided and confused, between saying there's no link to hijab to saying that Muslim gundas have murdered this guy because of his hijab protests. Your response to Aishwarya?
Shiv, first of all, I would like to appeal to the people of Shivamogga and Karnataka to maintain peace and tranquility. The Bharatiya Janata Party wants peace in that region. We appeal to all of them. A life has been lost, but let us not create a situation where the divide goes to the hearts of the people. It is an appeal from the Bharatiya Janata Party. Unlike the Congress Party, which gets into the toolkit operation wherever they find an opportunity. And they are doing it at full blast in public domain without any shame. Siddaramaiah came out denying the charge, but on D.K. Shivkumar, he did not name him. He did not say that D.K. Shivkumar has nothing to do with it. He went to the extent of saying whoever is behind this operation must be taken to task. Here's the great advocate of D.K. Shivkumar coming and telling us that Ishwarappa has no brains. I never knew that this panelist was a neurosurgeon. He has made a reference, he has said something, an investigation is in place. And as to the opinion of the Chief Minister and others, it is natural for the authorities concerned who are directly responsible for law and order trying to de-escalate the situation. And in that process, they can't blame people right now when an investigation is on.
But
if the Congress Party, which believes that if this kind of toolkit operation that they're going to divide, polarize society, I think they will be reduced beyond the numbers in Parliament, and you can see the following Karnataka election.
But beyond the politics, Minister Ishwarappa has said, even before, if one wants to take the Bommai government to task about categorically saying there's no hijab protest link with this murder of Harsha, then equally you've got KS Ishwarappa making a categorical inflammatory claim before the investigation has actually been completed, and I think that's what the Congress is saying. He has vitiated the atmosphere. Before I come to you, Aishwarya, and I will let you respond, we have time, I want to break another voice that's coming in from Karnataka. Very interesting. After the BJP's General Secretary in Karnataka, C.T. Ravi, after C.T. Ravi has called for an NIA investigation, which the Congress says shows lack of faith in the Bommai government by the BJP itself, now you've got the BJP MP from Mysuru, Pratap Simha, hitting out at his own party, says that he's ashamed with the manner in which the Karnataka government is handling the Harsha case. Politics has exploded, and this time a BJP MP appearing to hit out at his own government. Let's listen into Pratap Simha.
ಇವತ್ತು ಮತ್ತೆ ಹರ್ಷನ ಕಗ್ಗೊಲೆ ಆದ ಕೂಡಲೇ ನಾವು ಕಠಿಣ ಕ್ರಮ ಕೈಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಯಾರನ್ನೂ ಬಿಡಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರು ನಂಬ್ತಾರ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನನಗೆ ನಾಚಿಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಯಾವಾಗ ನಿರ್ದಾಕ್ಷಿಣ್ಯ ಕ್ರಮ ಕೈಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು? ಡಿಜೆ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಕೆಜಿ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಪ್ರಕರಣ ಸಂಭವಿಸಿದಾಗ ನಿರ್ದಾಕ್ಷಿಣ್ಯ ಕ್ರಮ ಕೈಗೊಂಡು ಇದೇ SDPI KFD ಮೇಲೆ ಕಠಿಣವಾದಂತಹ ಕ್ರಮ ಕೈಗೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಈ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಆಗ್ತಿತ್ತ? ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬಂದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಇಂದ SDPI ಬ್ಲೇಮ್ ಮಾಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರು ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು? ಯಾಕೋಸ್ಕರ?
Aishwarya, you were talking about the confusion within the BJP. This is a soundbite that's just come in from another prominent MP saying that the Karyakartas are going to be very, very irritated and angry with the government. There's also a sideways swipe at your party, the Congress. But would you like to react to what Pratap Simha has said?
Before I go to that, I think, it's so unfortunate that somebody...
Rashmi, stay with me. I'm coming to you also. Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody as senior and as seasoned as Mr. Tom Vadakan would make such infantile statements. But then again, Mr. Vadakan, very simply, if peace is the objective, the only thing you need to do is get the BJP leaders, the MPs and MLAs to keep their mouth shut. That is very singularly the only thing you need to do. What Mr. Pratap Simha is also doing is further vitiating this sort of communal strife in the state. And the break within the BJP, you can talk all you want about the Congress party. We are united. I may not be a neurosurgeon, but common sense tells me my party is far more united than your party, Mr. Vadakan. And the fact also remains that Mr. Pratap Simha, you see CT Ravi and all of them are further going to do this because they all win off the back of communal politics. That is the playbook 101. You may talk about whatever toolkit or whatever it is, but logic dictates that this is going to get worse. Get your house in order, Mr. Vadakan, before you go on to speak about mine or my leaders, Mr. DK Shivakumar and anybody else in the Congress. And your petty politics is going to worsen the situation in my state. You will sit in the comfort of your Delhi house while I sit in Karnataka. I work on the ground. I see how this affects the youngsters of this state and how young lives are lost while the big leaders of this country and the BJP have all their children sheltered away from the sort of communal politics that they are creating.
Okay, let's get Tom to answer that. Tom, on the back of what Aishwarya has said and what Pratap Simha has just said, which is basically an attack on your party, but the Congress says this vitiates the atmosphere even more. Tom, to you.
Well, Shiv, these are emotional moments. He is a lawmaker from the region, and he is an affected party. He is not bothered by what he says in this emotional turmoil. He has lost his worker.
And in that condition, give him a map,
he is
please.
bound to blame anybody involved in it. Tomorrow when the investigation starts, whether they want an NIA investigation or whatever investigation, NIA investigation means there is some international connection. That is what I referred about the toolkit. As to our leaders' reaction, don't talk about the disunity about the Congress party. There are workers, there are leaders walking away every day. While I'm talking to you, there will be somebody or the other walking out from your party. Let's talk about unity in your party.
Okay, but we're not talking about the two parties right now. We're talking about the issue.
Preaching to us on the unity issue. Let me be very candid to you. Look after your party more carefully. The clash between Sitaramaiah and your mentor.
Let's put unity of the parties aside. That's not our concern right now. Certainly not on this particular show. Rashmi, let me bring you in on this. You've heard the politicians of both sides. Aishwarya suggests that things are running to a script. It's a familiar playbook that is playing out. Communal polarization, that doesn't stop even with the taking of lives. If it means creating an atmosphere before elections next year. How do you see this? You live in the region. You are also from Karnataka. You've seen communal politics before. You are an activist who takes up these issues both legally and otherwise. What do you think about all of this being a script before the elections?
Well, I'm still checking the Facebook page that I was telling you about. I can share the link later on with you.
Yeah.
And it's still up, and it still has the post from 2015. It still has the post, from an hour ago when they said that the Hindu dog has been killed. So I think this has been happening for a really long time. Extremist elements have been festering in Karnataka, and since 2015, many governments have come and gone. And the current reaction that I see, they're least concerned about a life being lost. both parties. Sorry, but they're not concerned about this. They're just playing their politics. They've been lying through their teeth and creating misinformation, giving false statements just to increase their USP. And a boy is dead by the end of the day, and nobody's concerned about it. That is my genuine opinion, because this extremism has been festering from as early as 2015, at least for Harsha. For other people, I don't know. And there are many, Hindu activists out there who are risking their lives day in and day out for what they believe in a peaceful manner. And in this confusion, their safety is also being compromised. Today, I have also intervened in the court. Tomorrow, I might also have a fatwa. And, these politicians, they don't care about this. A boy is dead. A Hindu boy is dead.
I'm going to get both Tom and Aishwarya to respond to that. Aishwarya, respond directly to what Rashmi says. She says, the murders of people like Harsha, and let's not fool ourselves. Harsha is not the first person on either, in either community to be killed in this manner amidst communal flare-ups. But what Rashmi suggests is that the politicians are happy glossing over the details of who's been murdered because it suits their political convenience and interest before elections. You respond to that, Aishwarya.
Shiv, before I get to that, one thing what Rashmi said is extremely important. The fact that she popped up her phone to say that these posts are still existing, that the fact that this is still in the environment smacks of a deeper law and order problem and an absolute inability of the government to have curtailed this or even acted upon the fact that this seems to have an element of premeditation, one. And second thing is, when you talk about the politics of communalization, the fact remains that there's only one political party that seems to work off the back of it when development as an agenda is completely failed, and that is what has happened in Karnataka. I will put it out very clearly. What has the Congress done in this situation? We have said whoever is wrong, irrespective of caste, creed, community, denomination, take the strictest action against them. What have we appealed for? We've appealed for peace. And more than that, we've asked the BJP, we begged the BJP saying, you are in government, you may be completely unable to control the situation, but stop your own politicians from creating more tension on the ground, because the politicians have the privilege of safety and security, while people on the ground in these situations, their lives are at risk. How do you not know more retaliation is not going to take place? How do you not know these statements of C.T. Ravi and Pratap Singh are not going to kill more youngsters? Forget the religion of this. Forget the politics of this. This is lives at stake. And the BJP is completely irresponsible on this front.
Tom,
and should be deeply condemned. And Tom should tell us.
No, and this is irresponsible. Even Congress is making irresponsible statements.
What is the statement?
DK Shivkumar, he made that statement about the national flag, which is totally false. The national flag was not taken down. And a saffron flag.
We fact checked that actually here on India Today.
National flag. He's also lying through his teeth. All of them are just getting, their bit out of this thing. That's it. Nobody is being good here. Do not try to blame it on one side. Everyone's playing bad here. And a Hindu.
Let's put Rashmi and Aishwarya on the screen. Let them have a conversation. This is a specific issue they're talking about.
Let's also be unbiased when we talk about what Mr. Ishwarappa said. The Shivamogga flag, we have also clarified. The fact was Mr. Ishwarappa went on to say, who knows, the Bhagavad Dwaja may fly over the tricolour one day. The fact that we have a right in this democracy to even speak comes from the constitution and what the nation stands for. And you're talking about completely changing what the country is, and that is the problem, right? That is what we've been highlighting. How do you have a problem with that? We're fighting for the fact that a man who's in government has insulted a national flag, and you think it's completely all right. And you're saying we're irresponsible.
Just shifted the blame on a young boy. He just pointed out that a young boy has done it, when a young boy has not done it. He needs to take it up with politicians.
Aishwarya, listen to her as well.
That's what both sides are doing, and nobody's the better here. And you don't need to say that someone's better than the other here. There's no justification. This is just a farce. We need peace. A Hindu boy is dead, and we need to act upon this, and the community needs to come together on it, not point fingers like this, because both are at fault and both have given out some damning statements out there.
Go ahead, Aishwarya.
See, the fact of the matter is very simple. We condemn what has happened. You're saying we're being irresponsible. No, the protest in the house and everything that is happening today, Shiv, is because of the fact that a cabinet minister thought it was right to insult the tricolour. All of you are saying we're being irresponsible about that. That is extremely shameful, one. And second is, this is the same man that goes on to say the
She's talking about what DK Shivkumar had said about the national flag being replaced, which was a story that we had done here on India Today.
What is a flagpole for? Are we flying the flag of Sumatra?
This is just like
No, no, but-
distortion, like
No,
not
that's-
admitting the mistake. You
flag
just
was
need to admit your own
generally
mistake
flying.
before you
That's
point out to others' mistakes. That is basic.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Does she want to shout louder? I couldn't hear.
No, everyone, please calm down. There's enough tension already on the ground. We can have a normal conversation. I know emotions are running high. Rashmi, is your point that the politicians need to stop pointing fingers at each other and started taking responsibility for what's going on the ground?
Yes, I think that is the final point that I want to make, and that all parties here involved are at fault because they have made some damning statements on all sides.
Okay.
And they need to take responsibility to it instead of, masquerading out there and virtue signaling that, we were better, we were just asking for peace. No, because everybody's made mistakes on this one. And a Hindu boy is dead by the end of the day. So they need to stop playing politics and just focus on getting things back in order. Getting law and order back in order.
Boy, it is not
And
about a boy.
everybody has a role to play in it, not just one side. We as a community need to come together and stop masquerading and stop virtue signaling.
Okay. Rashmi Samant, I'm going to let that be the last word. She says stop masquerading and stop virtue signaling. There are irresponsible comments coming in from both sides. But the onus, let me say this very, very clearly right now. The onus will still be on the ruling government in Karnataka to ensure that this situation does not spiral out of control. The onus will be doubly on the government's ministers not to make comments that vitiate the atmosphere even further. And it is the responsibility of the opposition not to instigate and to stoke tensions in any manner. This is about the lives of citizens of Karnataka, of India. This is about the lives of families, the mental peace of persons. Elections will come and go. But ultimately, will the death of a 23-year-old Bajrang Dal activist become just another statistic in the whirlpool of politics before every single election cycle? Tom, Aishwarya, Rashmi, always a pleasure to have you with me on this show. Thank you very much for being with me.